Well, hi, hello, and welcome to Elevating Your API Security, Assessing Maturity and Defining Milestones. Today's webinar is sponsored by No Name Security and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Jess Steinbach. I'm with Actual Tech Media, and I'm so happy that I get to be here and be your moderator for this conversation today because we have a fun and interactive discussion planned for all of you exploring key insights into API security. And that is exactly what we will get out of our time here together today. We are going to break down all of the various important elements included in an API security planning. And wherever you're at in this phase, whether you're just getting started or maybe you're looking to assess and evaluate where you're at, maybe you need to make some tweaks and changes, we're going to explore how all of this fits into your existing API security structure, as well as an entire cybersecurity strategy for your organization. Now, our incredible expert presenters here with us today are going to help you understand the foundational elements of your existing API security plan, or again, maybe one that you're dreaming of and hoping to implement, and how they correlate to this ever-evolving threat landscape that we're all living in today. And we will all walk away with a better understanding of the capabilities a mature end-to-end API security program offers, and I love this part, map out the milestones to actually get there. So we're going to take it from the theoretical to those action steps. This is going to be a great day. I cannot wait to get started, but I do have a few housekeeping things that I want to run through with all of you first to make sure that you get the most out of our time here together today. So let's go through a few of those together right now. We're going to start out with the usual place, the best place, the question section, because that's where we get to interact with all of you. That's my favorite part of these webinars. So I see some highs and hellos coming in from Daniel, Marteza, Diego, Ben. I saw Paul in there. We got a whole awesome crew. Hey, Murray, awesome crew coming in here with us today. Keep those highs and hellos coming. And you can make sure you're greeting the community here with us, but then keep that interaction coming throughout our webinar today because our speakers want to hear from you. And they're going to be tailoring, adjusting their content as we go. And they want to get into your questions at the end. So make sure you're getting all of the insightful API security questions that I know you have burning a hole in your brain right now. Get them into that window and make sure you ask them as we go through this today. I do also want to remind you that that questions window is the best place to reach out if you have any tech issues today. A quick little note on that though, a browser refresh is probably going to clear out any of the more common tech problems. So if something happens with slides or audio today, try a browser refresh first. But if that doesn't work for you, you can shoot us a message in the questions window and our team will be there to help you out. All right, our last stop on our little guided tour here. We started in the questions window. We're going to go one tab over to the handouts tab. Make sure you spend some time exploring these resources. Open those tabs, open those links, download that PDF. Make sure you've got that all set aside because you don't want to read them just yet. We've got lots of content coming at you, but as soon as we wrap, you are going to want to revisit all of those resources. Those are going to be great takeaways and follow-ups to the conversation we're about to have. So be sure that you have those links open and ready to rock after we close out our webinar today. Now, it is not just awesome content that we are giving away. We also have a $250 Amazon gift card as a prize drawing that we will give away at the end of our webinar. Now, you do need to be here in live attendance during the webinar in order to qualify to win that prize, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. If you're saying to yourself, sounds great, Jess, but what are those T's and C's? No problem. We have them linked for you in the handouts tab, so just click and scroll down, and you will find the full prize terms and conditions listed for you there. Now, not only does asking a great and insightful question today help bring up the whole fun and conversation of our webinar, and as always, you will get a lovely gold star A+ from me, but you will also be entered to win a $50 Amazon gift card for the best question asked. Now, we are reviewing all of the questions asked after we wrap, so even if we don't get to your question live today, not only will you get a follow-up from the No Name team after we wrap up our webinar, but you are also entered to win that $50 Amazon gift card. So keep those questions coming in. That is a win-win situation, right? You get cool information and you could possibly win that $50 Amazon gift card. All right, well, speaking of win-win, I think it's time we get this dynamic duo on out here with us. So let's get our conversation rolling. I am so excited that I get to introduce you all to our incredible expert presenters here with us today. And I know we are going to have a wonderful conversation with Stas Naiman, Senior Director of Product Marketing, and Marco Prudnikov, Solutions Architect, both from No Name Security. Let's get Stas and Marco on out here with me. Hey team, thank you so much for being here with us today. I know we've got a lot to cover. So, Stas, I'm going to hand things right on over to you. Take it away.
Awesome. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Elevating of Your API Security webinar. So my name is Stas Neyman. I am a Senior Director of Product Marketing at No Name Security. And today, I'm actually joined by Marco. Marco, you want to say hi?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is Marco Prudnikov, and like Stas said, I'm a solution architect here at No Name Security.
Awesome. So in the next 30 minutes or so, we'll help you understand sort of the components of API security, their respective roles, how show you the steps to assess and enhance your organization's API security maturity level, and provide you insights from real world deployments and industry best practices. As just mentioned at the end of the webinar, we'll take a few questions, but again, please do submit them throughout. And even if we don't get to them today, we'll respond in detail in the next few days. And with that, let's get started. All right. What is a better way to kick things off than with a sort of fun question? All right, everyone. So what do adding yourself to an online wait list for a restaurant and sending a rocket ship to the moon have in common? You give you 5 seconds to lock in your answer. All right. The answer is both require patience and a lot of fidgeting while waiting for the final countdown. But at least with a wait list, you get some delicious food instead of a bunch of rocks. But also APIs. All right. So APIs, I understand this is a 3 out of 10 joke on a Comedy Central scale. But in terms of APIs are involved in pretty much 10 out of 10 digital activities.
Yeah, thanks, Stas. And really that comes into whether controlling a nuclear reactor, setting up your AWS environment, transferring money, or even like submitting an IT ticket. Everything we do now relies on APIs. And on average, actually, like a large enterprise might have over 20,000 different APIs. That's a huge attack surface to secure and manage. So let's see what it actually takes to make sure your organization is actually secure. So what we'll start by breaking down the notion of API security into something that's a little bit more manageable. So No Name Security, as well as some of the industry experts, agree that API security can be broken down to 4 distinct areas. So that's going to be discovery, posture, runtime, and testing. So for today's webinar, we'll go through each one of these and discuss what different levels of maturity actually means for them. And so Stas, do you want to take us away with discovery?
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to. So API discovery refers to the process of identifying and cataloging all APIs present within your environments. So if you think about it for a second, the discovery capabilities are essential, right? You can't really secure something that you don't know anything about or haven't seen. So in addition, discovery can help you stay compliant with regulations and even maintain operational efficiency. And there are a few ways that you can discover APIs. Some, of course, are more efficient than others. So, for example, you can do it manually, but a much better way is to go automatically and scan your traffic for APIs. You can also upload API specs or like documentation for APIs that are not currently active on your network. And even better, you can connect your, whatever API security solution you're using to your source code repository like GitHub, right? And in this way, you get, a complete picture of every API in your environment. And well, that does sound, pretty easy. In the real world, API discovery can be tricky and challenging. What is for sure, 100%, you have more APIs that you think. Like, for example, you can have APIs that are deployed across different platforms, cloud services, third-party vendors, and that all makes it pretty difficult to track and manage. And there are many different types of APIs, right? There's of course REST, but you'll also most likely have some GraphQLs and SOAP APIs and others. Mark, anything else that sort of comes to your mind when you think about API discovery at our customers?
Yeah, actually, I have a really fun story. During a POV, which is what we call a proof of value here at No Name, we discovered all of the customers' APIs. And in these APIs, there were some zombie APIs. And for those of you that are not familiar with what a zombie API is, it means an API that isn't documented or being actively used. And these zombie APIs were accessing production data. And what made it worse is on top of them being zombie APIs, is that there was no authentication for them either. So anybody could access this API. So after some investigation, we found that these APIs were actually from an old hackathon the company did, but they never decommissioned their infrastructure. And for those of you unfamiliar with hackathons are, they're used to bring technical people, technical backgrounds together for some problem solving and developing new ideas for a few days. So normally some corners are cut for the speed of development for these ideas. So potentially a very huge security vulnerability was avoided by this discovery of these APIs. And so on that note, let's actually go through the discovery pillar in terms of maturity levels. So what we'll be doing for all these pillars is we'll be breaking it down to 5 levels, all the way from initial, all the way to optimal. So let's get started with initial level. So at this stage, API discovery is ad hoc or even non-existent. So organizations may not have a formal process for identifying and cataloging APIs within their environments. Discovery efforts often rely on manual methods, sporadic scanning, or incidental discovery, like during development or integrations of other projects. Then we move along to the baseline level. In this stage, organizations recognize the importance of API discovery, and they start to develop a strategy for systematically identifying and managing their APIs. There may be some initial efforts to inventory existing APIs and establish basic documentation through the processes, whether through interviews or developer conversations. And moving to intermediate. In my experience, this is where a lot of organizations plateau in their API security journey without some type of API security specific tooling. And at this level, they establish formalized processes and procedures for API discovery. They normally have a very clear understanding of the scope and objectives of the API discovery efforts, including the types of APIs that need to be discovered and the tools and techniques to be used to find them. The documentation practices are normally more structured, and there are usually more dedicated teams or even roles responsible just for API discovery to begin with. And moving to the advanced stage, in this stage, usually API discovery is a well-managed and integrated component of the organization's overall API lifecycle management. So these discovery processes are now automated and now continuously monitored with tools and technologies in place to identify, catalog, and track APIs across the entire enterprise. There's a very strong emphasis on data quality, accuracy, and the completeness of their API inventories. And finally, the highest level of maturity, organizations have achieved the state of continuous improvement and innovation in their API discovery. So now they're leveraging advanced analytics, machine learning, potentially some artificial intelligence to enhance its discovery capabilities and uncover insights from their API ecosystems. The important part here is now API discovery is being tightly integrated into other aspects of API management, such as governance, security, and performance optimization.
Awesome. All right. Well, now let's move on to the next pillar, which is posture management. So API posture management focuses on assessing and then maintaining the overall security posture of your APIs. So it involves, continuously evaluating the security controls, the configurations, and the behaviors of APIs to just make sure that they align with security best practices and any compliance requirements. So when it comes to posture management, there are a few capabilities that you will need. For example, you want to implement this ongoing assessment and monitoring of API security controls and configurations, looking at authentication mechanism and access controls and encryption protocols. The goal is to identify potential security risks and vulnerabilities in APIs and then take proactive measures to mitigate them. By the way, mitigation is a super important step, not only because it helps you, avoid the potential exposure, should a bad guy exploit some vulnerability that you have in your APIs, but it also helps to ensure the compliance with regulatory requirements and any industry standards or even internal security policies. For example, any public company, is subject to some data compliance regulations. You might have GDPR requirements or HIPAA or PCI DSS. There's many others. So, this is where a solution, say like No Name comes extra handy because we can help you map the findings that you find, that you discover to relevant regulations and frameworks. Other features that can make your life easier, probably automation, just to accelerate security assessments, remediation workflows, policy enforcement, and making sure that reporting is up to par, and so that all your relevant stakeholders are actually aware of the security posture and any high risk findings.
Yeah, thanks, Stas. And I think it's really important to recognize that like posture management effectiveness in the real world really just depends on the complexity of enterprises' API ecosystem. If you have numerous internal, external APIs, you have microservices, you have third-party integrations, managing the security posture of all these connected APIs can be a really big challenge due to like their dynamic nature and varying security requirements for each of them. And something also to really consider is not every API vulnerability needs to be fixed. That's why you have frameworks like the OWASP top 10 API vulnerabilities that can help you prioritize what's important. And like, by the way, No Name can help you there as well, as we actually give you a risk score for each analyzed API, even if it wasn't attacked. So why we do this is to show you how likely it will be attacked and the potential impact and downstream effects of that hack. Which brings me to my next point, resource constraints. So over and over, we see that even though the technology you have works to find these vulnerabilities, the limited resources, including budget, expertise, engineering power, can really hinder your ability to effectively manage the security posture of those APIs. So automation is your best friend here, of course. And actually, a recent example where I've seen this issue was just last week. I was at a CISO roundtable talking to CISOs about API security. And one of the questions that kept coming up is that, hey, we have so many tools that report so many different vulnerabilities. Like, how do we even know what to focus on when we start onboarding an API security system that has thousands of different APIs? And that's exactly where a risk score comes in. We take into account of the data exposure, the operation sensitivity, whether it's a GET or a POST. Like, is this API internet facing? What auth is it using? And this approach helps us identify and prioritize APIs with a high potential for abuse to narrow down that level of impact.
All right, very good. So I think we should discuss the different maturity levels for API posture management. So again, as before, 5 stages, five levels. Initial level, again, minimal ad hoc processes for managing posture of APIs. Efforts are mostly reactive and implemented sort of on as needed basis in response to basically a security incident or if you have a compliance requirement. Moving on to baseline, so organization at this level start to recognize the importance of posture management and have developed some basic plans or strategy for doing that. So efforts here focus on initial security assessments, defining security requirements, implementing foundational controls, which we covered like authentication or access controls. Next, intermediate level, this is where things are a little bit more formalized and established, right? You have regular security assessments, you monitor your API security controls, you remediate any vulnerabilities you find. And this is where you start to see automation tools, establish security policies and standards. And what we really like to see here, to meet that level is, posture management becomes sort of part of the overall governance framework. Advanced stage is, obviously where we all want you to be, is where everything is well defined. You have automated controls, and the focus shifts to proactive, right? So proactive risk identification, proactive mitigation, looking at optimizing your security controls. And this is where you want to start, you're leveraging some advanced analytics, looking at threat intelligence, using ML, machine learning to just enhance API security posture and effectively respond to, any emerging threats. Again, No Name, has the right capabilities and tools to help you to get to this level. And at the highest maturity level, this is where we see the shift in culture, right? So now you're pairing the technology with, this culture of continuous, innovation and improvement. And there's a strong collaboration between departments. So, when your security team finds, a vulnerability, right away, you know exactly who the, developer owners are, and, dev team is ready to jump in. They have established processes to get this addressed. All right.
All right.
Runtime.
So moving right along to API runtime protection. So here the focus is actually on the safeguarding of the APIs and their associated resources during that runtime or execution. So this really starts involving real-time monitoring, detection, and actually mitigation mechanisms to identify and prevent security attacks and threats that are actually targeting APIs while they're in operation and production. So there's a few key aspects that actually go into this and what organizations should consider when we're talking about API runtime protection. So first is going to be that real-time monitoring. So obviously identifying an attack way after it's done is not going to help much. So the continuous monitoring of this API traffic, their requests and their responses in real time to detect like abnormal or like even malicious behavior is critical. So by actually analyzing the incoming and outgoing API traffic, you can actually identify suspicious API calls, abnormal request patterns, or even unauthorized access attempts to the APIs. And like, by the way, like behavior analysis plays a very crucial role in API runtime protection. By identifying like those deviations from normal API usage patterns and behaviors, you can actually establish baselines of what an expected API behavior looks like. And then you can start detecting anomalies that are indicative of security threats, such as maybe some unusual spikes in API traffic, unauthorized access attempts, or different types of API abuse. And really another focus area is implementing access control and authorization mechanisms, especially for any type of public facing API. This will ensure that only authorized users and applications can access these API resources. And once you determine that there's an attack, you'll need some capabilities to stop it.
Yep, absolutely right, Marco. And let's talk about runtime protection in the real world. And I want to be clear. First of all, not all the attacks are going to be sort of like your trivial or known OWASP top 10. We've seen this, done that before type situation. Bad guys are not, exactly trying to breach your systems with all tricks all the time. Like there will be plenty of, more sophisticated threats targeting your APIs. And these are, this is a key, they're not signature based, so you can have APTs like advanced persistent threats or zero-day exploits or polymorphic attacks. Like these types of attacks will evade your traditional security controls like WAFs because they have no idea what to look for. WAFs operate on signatures. And so you would need, some advanced detection and analysis techniques, which is, again, what's important to, partner with an API security, company with vast experience and advanced, ML capabilities to be able to analyze the behavior and spot these types of, tricky attacks. And by the way, on the whole other end of the spectrum, you might also encounter something called low and slow attacks, right? These can take like months to materialize. And again, the solution you choose and the controls that you have in place will dictate, how successful you are at identifying and blocking these types of attacks. And as you can imagine, runtime protection it's not perfect. Right, like the systems can, generate errors. Right, they may generate false positives or false negatives, and that can lead to, either unnecessary alerts or, missed security incidents. So, balancing this accuracy of, threat detection, versus the risk it's a pretty common challenge. So one thing that we do on our end, not all the vendors provide that, but we give you a confidence score for each attack, right? So you can actually tell, like, we think with 80%, confidence or 90% confidence or 100% confidence that this is an attack. And obviously you can prioritize based on the confidence score what you're going to remediate. And one final thing, to mention is that prevention itself also can be challenging, right? You don't want to just start blocking attacks right away. Right? This might disrupt your business. It might stop some users from accessing or stop some programs from running. So looking at potentially other preventative measures, rate limiting or throttling, that could be an initial step to, save yourself. Marco, anything else that you can think about here?
Yeah, actually, we had ran into a pretty significant issue about 2 months ago during one of our POVs with a prospect. We found actually a pretty devastating issue with their loyalty program being abused. So ultimately, what was happening? People's loyalty accounts kept having funds somehow siphoned from them, and we didn't know why this was happening. But what we found out was there was an API endpoint that an attacker was accessing that would provide the full account details of customer, including any gift cards associated with their account, and actually the amount of the money on the gift card, as well as with the gift card numbers. And the only thing they needed to access this API was a phone number. So what the attacker was actually doing was he or she was iterating through random phone numbers to this endpoint until they got a valid response back with customer information. And then using the gift card and account details in that API, they would pull money directly from their account because all the details was there. So what ended up happening was the prospect actually leveraged our blocking capabilities to put a temporary stop to this attacker while they added proper authentication to this API to fix this underlying issue.
Yeah, definitely. It does happen, more often than companies will admit. So maybe you want to run through the different maturity levels too here?
Yeah, for sure. So as we've seen before, we separated into 5 pillars. And at this initial level, usually security measures are implemented reactively, so in response to security incidents and basic security controls. This can be access controls, and encryptions may not be applied consistently. Also, there's usually a lack of real-time monitoring and threat detection capabilities. And then once we start moving along at the baseline level, now the focus shifts to implementing like foundational security measures such as access control, rate limiting, basic threat detection capabilities. And this usually is almost at the WAF or the API gateway level. And now once we move to intermediate, this is also where we see most organizations start plateauing with this risk assessment and this runtime protection. And they actually have established a formalized process and controls for API runtime protection. For example, here they might start integration with security information and event management systems, also known as SIMs, for a centralized monitoring and analysis. And then when we start moving up to advanced, what we typically see here is a comprehensive set of security controls and measures in place, including like advanced threat detection capabilities, behavior analytics, and actually automated response mechanisms. So these efforts may include continuous monitoring, the optimization of security controls, integrations with different threat intelligence feeds, and then proactive measures to mitigate emerging security threats. And so the ultimate level, the gold standard. So this is where we start combining different technologies, such as machine learning, artificial intelligence, and predictive analysis with these runtime issues to help enhance your threat detection and the response capabilities. And another note, this is something that actually No Name helps our customers to achieve with their market-leading AI capabilities.
All right. Final pillar?
Yes, the final pillar, API testing.
All right.
Yeah, so API testing is, of course, important part of any API security strategy, because really the concept of it is to help you find issues while APIs are being developed. So everything we talked about before is when we see attacks coming on. This is actually the first step of preventing any of these issues from happening. So there are many types of tests and assessments that can be performed, and you can see those under those key capability section. But a few I want to point out is the authorization testing. It's probably one of the most basic tests that you can run to evaluate the effectiveness of the authentication methods, such as OAuth, JWT, and different API keys. And of course, to ensure that these APIs are being accessed by authorized users only, and they're not accepting expired JOT tokens or anything like that. Sensitive data protection is also a very key area. APIs handle all sorts of sensitive data. To be fair, that's the only reason why APIs matter, is because of the data that's inside of them. These can be anywhere from financial records, health records, to nuclear reactor codes. So checking for data encryption, transmission security, and compliance with a lot of these data protection regulations that are coming out to ensure that since the data is not being exposed or leaked is a must. And finally, API security testing ensures that APIs adhere to industry security standards, such as the OAuth that we mentioned earlier, and regulatory requirements that Stas mentioned a few slides back.
Yep. Yeah. And you know, when you think about it, you know, API testing makes, you know, a lot of sense. And, you know, as with everything there, you know, real world nuances to consider. For example, testing coverage, right? So achieving comprehensive testing coverage for an API, it's not easy. It can be challenging, right? You know, if you have large and complex API landscapes, you know, making sure that all the endpoints and all the input parameters and all the authentication mechanisms are there, and you know, all the access controls are thoroughly tested. That all requires sort of this careful planning and execution. And again, I do want to point out, you know, a quick plug is that, you know, No Name is actually the only company that provides a feature we call Coverage Center, but essentially it uses plain human language to actually guide you to how to optimize your test coverage and ensure all your APIs are tested at what exactly you need to change, or kind of information you need to provide in the testing environment to test things thoroughly. And by the way, speaking of you know, coverage, understanding of business logic is actually critical to ensure that you thoroughly test your APIs. So I'll give you an example, just kind of based on the what we just saw at our customer with the loyalty program. But imagine you have, you know, kind of an API that grabs some sort of information about the customer in response to, you know, a customer number. Now, your typical test, like this is what your, you know, off-the-shelf tools would do, you know, application testing. They will just, you know, plug in some random number and see, you know, if API responds with anything. But what if you actually understand how this API works, how the person would interact with this API, and supply the right customer number, sort of like in the right format. Now, then you can actually get the real information about, you know, an actual real life customer. And then all of a sudden you see that not only it provides, you know, first name, last name, but also includes your loyalty points, your credit card information, your credit score, whatever other information that shouldn't be shared. You know, so you're oversharing, over providing information. That's super important, which is why, you know, you need to understand the underlying, how the API is actually used in the real world to do effective testing. And then another thing that you really don't think about often or consider when you're just thinking about, oh, you know, should I implement, you know, API testing, is actually the ROI, because ROI here is massive. Like, not only you get to eliminate some of the point solutions that, you know, only do pen testing, but the fact that you can fix things during production is, during the development, is actually huge. So here is, you know, a graph that just kind of shows you how much does it cost to repair things at different stages of the API lifecycle. So if fixing something, you know, during the coding phase is X, the cost to fix something in prod is like 600 times that. So it requires you to stop the API, stop the business process, implement the fix, test the fix, put it back into production, you know, test it again, whatever you need to. Right. So if you catch vulnerabilities earlier in the cycle, you're saving a lot of resources and, quite frankly, a lot of headaches. Which is why, you know, the term you might have heard, you know, shift left, right? The ability to integrate security right at the start of API development and then continue throughout the lifecycle is so important. So, Marco, do you want to run us through the maturity levels here?
Yeah, absolutely. So this API testing maturity model, this is the last one that we have in our 4 pillars. And it starts at a very similar path as the other ones did. So the very initial level, security testing is manual in nature and only done sporadically. So oftentimes this isn't even a QA team. It's not even your developers doing it. It's just the actual business logic of implementing these APIs. Then we move to the actual baseline level of this. So this is, there is a basic plan or strategy for testing. So this could be the identification of like security key requirements, maybe some testing objectives, and very basic testing methodologies. Efforts may usually focus on conducting basic security tests, such as vulnerability scanning, some very basic pen testing, and some security assessments to identify and mitigate some risks. At the intermediate level, so you can see the trend here, intermediate level is when things start shifting pretty drastically. At this level, there's a clear understanding of the importance of security testing in the software development lifecycle. And these organizations have actually implemented structured approaches to API security testing. The important distinction here, though, is that testing is starting to get integrated in the actual development process with defined roles and responsibilities. So this is the QA teams, this is the actual dedicated time and sprints for testing, standardized testing methodologies, and then we actually see some automated testing tools and frameworks in place to help guide them on this journey. Moving to the advanced phase. So an advanced phase of API security testing is when it's fully integrated into the DevSecOps process. So you have actually the tools or capabilities to proactively address security threats and vulnerabilities within the pipeline of deployment. So when you're deploying these APIs, you can actually address them then and there and prevent that from coming out. And finally, gold standard, the optimal level. So we are looking at the complete automation with a high degree of confidence in the issues. So we're not only testing APIs in development, we're testing those APIs that are in your inventory. And of course, all the testing is based on the fundamental understanding of that underlying API business logic that are actually powering those APIs themselves.
Awesome. All right. Well, now that you sort of understand, hopefully, all the aspects of API security and sort of various levels of maturity, if you don't mind, share with us, what do you think is your least mature area? And by the way, don't worry, this is all completely anonymous. We'll only see the percentages, and I'll actually bring, I think I'll bring the results back, towards the end of the webinar. So when you have a second, just click right in. It takes 5 seconds to lock in your answer, and then we'll discuss those, towards the very end. And while you're doing that, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. While you're doing that, I have something for you. There it is. All right. So we actually developed something for this webinar. It's a top 20 security controls for organizations. And this is just a list of titles of the controls. But in the resource center, I linked a PDF, and we linked the PDF that actually describes each and every controls. So you can either go function by function, how we describe, and look at your discovery, look at your posture management, or you can use this this document to quickly assess your just overall API security muscle, and then controls as you sort of level up through the security posture. And again, this is exclusive to this webinar, at least for now. We might make it public a little bit later. Okay.
Awesome. Oh, thank you, first of all, for mentioning the STOS. It's a very helpful tool that we use for organizations to help identify gaps in your controls and your API security capabilities. By the way, though, as we mentioned throughout the webinar, the No-Name platform can indeed support you at every stage of your API journey. The No-Name API security platform perfectly aligns to the API security components we covered. So we assess your API landscape looking inside and out. We evaluate your API inventory and really help you fix these vulnerabilities before they ever become exploited. And of course, like we mentioned just now, we do test your APIs as they're being developed. We help you fix those identified issues, and we prevent those vulnerabilities from ever going live in the first place. And all of this can really be accomplished without agents or data lakes, and is done out of band. And another really big differentiator is it's totally up to you if you want to deploy No-Name 100% on-premise, or let us handle everything for you as a SaaS solution. And final thing I want to mention is that unlike other solutions on the market, we can seamlessly integrate to almost your entire security stacks. This way you can enhance the value of existing investments by feeding in the security data from your APIs.
All right. So if I had to summarize what we learned today, and there's probably, 3 things, right? You need to consider all 4 areas for API security and through the entire lifecycle of APIs to keep the risk exposure low and your company secure. And number 2, as was proven by 66% that I see of the respondents, don't forget about API testing, right? Not only does it help you prevent vulnerabilities making it to prod, but it actually saves you a significant amount of resources if you do it, upfront versus, once everything in production. And finally, no name, we can be there for you every step of the way. We work with the largest, most demanding enterprises, most well-known enterprises. And really, we can help you wherever you are on your API journey. If you're just at the initial phase or want to move towards the optimal one. So with that, I will. I think we have one question for you, which is what topic you would like us to cover next. Please let us know. We always look at what was submitted, and that's how we plan our next webinars. And if it's not in the list, send us put it in a question box. And then we'll consider it then. But definitely appreciate you guys taking the time. And I think Jen, you want to come back to tell us a little bit about the questions?
Well, I want to start by, first and foremost, I want to start by saying thank you, Stas and Marco. That was just an awesome presentation and so informative. I'm leaving your poll question up just a second longer so we can get as many responses as possible. And I also want to say I've seen a few people here asking about getting a copy of the slides. So first and foremost, we will make sure that you all get the on-demand version of this recording. So I know there was a lot of information covered today, and if you're looking to kind of relive and re-experience the fun we all just had together, you'll get that on-demand version, and you can kind of rewatch and go through this. I will also recommend that you click on those handouts. Make sure that you've opened up all those links and downloaded that PDF so that you've got those handouts with you, because that will help you revisit some of this information after we wrap. If there's a specific piece of information that you want that you don't see in the handouts tab, or that you want to make sure you get to revisit that Stas and Marco just covered, just post in that questions window, and we're going to make sure that the No Name Security team gets not only all of your questions, but any of those comments. Hey, can you send me info on this? Can you send me this? I'd like to see this slide again. And then they can follow up and make sure that you get the info you need. So lots of people asking for follow-ups already. You guys are definitely hitting some nerves, some chords out there. Let's get into a few of these questions before we need to run here. Stas, Mark, are you guys ready for some Q&A?
Let's hear it.
Yeah, let's, it's 40, so let's take a few questions. And the rest, again, if we don't get to you, we'll get to you directly, personally. I will personally write out the answer for you.
Who doesn't want to hear directly from Stas? I know we all want to hang out with you some more, so we'll do a fast Q&A, and then we'll let you follow up with everyone. Stas, is there a need to upload an OAS file, or is the automated scanning enough?
No, you do not need to. It's just one of the ways. For example, imagine if you have a API that does not send the traffic yet, right? It's not flowing through I don't know where your API is residing, so you won't be able to capture it through traffic. So one way to add it to your inventory, so you know about it and you know who the owner is and the type, data types it uses, it's to upload the file. So no. Doesn't need to. We can either get it from the traffic or you can provide it manually. Marco, do you have a different opinion on this one?
No, I think that's great. The OAS specs are actually a really good way that we identify those zombies APIs. Normally, when organizations have a lot of OAS specs, they can upload them. And any type of API we discover that doesn't have an OAS spec, we actually can create one for it. But then we can actually just tell them, like, hey, out of the 20,000 OAS open API specs you uploaded, you have 6,000 of them that are actually not, no APIs are correlating to any of them. So 6,000 zombie APIs that you need to get a spec for. And we help actually generate them for that as well.
Awesome. That's actually great, because we did get a couple of questions about how to identify a zombie. You scared everyone with the zombie APIs, Marco. So that's
a scary name for a scary thing.
It is, yes. It's very apt, though. It's perfect, and you feel that sense when the zombies are coming at you. Okay, where do you guys see that companies are typically starting to use the tools in the discovery model?
So I can take this one. Normally at the intermediary step, normally how it goes is companies want to establish an API security program, and they start by interviewing the developers. So you're interviewing your developers, you're going to each individual developer, talking about their APIs, asking them for the specs, and then you write it down in some document, and then you're done. Now, guess what? In this modern age, APIs are being developed really, really fast. So the second you're going to interview another developer, that is now out of date because of some things that they pushed. So tooling is almost necessary at the intermediary step to have that dynamic and continuously building inventory list for your organization.
Okay. I'm going to start to wrap us up here because we're running short on time, but I'm going to try to squeeze in just one or two more questions. This one here was an interesting one. We came across an API endpoint from a third party which used good practices such as requiring a token. Well done. But during manual review, we uncovered that the token had a very long expiration date. Basically, it didn't expire. So this made me think that this misconfiguration could happen to us. Here's my question. What control would catch this issue? Could No Name detect and surface this?
Cool. Awesome. Good question, Raphael. I just want to say that this is a big thing that we see normally in the posture piece. So we're actually discovering the APIs for part of the posture piece of the platform. We're learning about those misconfigurations. Hey, is it public facing? Is it internal only? What kind of authentication models does it have on it? So ultimately, we actually can see and decrypt those JOT tokens and see when that expiration date. So normally in our platform, we flag anything that's over 24 hours as a token that's too long. So that'd be in the posture side of API discovery. So this is the second pillar of API security is where we would find that issue.
Perfect. Okay. Wow. We're just getting flooded with questions now. I looked away for 2 seconds and I came back and there's so many. You guys are going to have some homework after we wrap. I'm unfortunately going to have to kind of leave it here. I'm going to sneak in one last question for you both. And I think this will be a nice way to kind of end our conversation. What I'm wondering is when you're looking, we got a question in about, why work with No Name over sort of existing out of the box security. And I'm wondering maybe if we can approach that in a grander scale as well. If somebody is evaluating API security platforms, what makes No Name stand out? What would you say is sort of the key unique and the key reason to work with you, full stop, and then also to work with you instead of just kind of going with those out of the box systems that a company might already have in place? And maybe we can kind of make that our final note.
Sure. I could take it from I could take it from a technical, you can take it from a product. Is that good?
Perfect.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Cool. Ultimately, what I've seen is for organizations that do have some type of out-of-the-box security functionality, normally this is in one specific API gateway or one WAF or something. And ultimately, large organizations have many different integration points, such as different gateways, different WAFs, different tooling that are all like different and not talking to each other. So you might have no idea that what one development team is using this one gateway, what APIs are going through that one gateway. And ultimately, you need a tool that brings all this together, that's using this machine learning to identify a lot of these issues that, unfortunately, these one-off solutions can provide you a good understanding maybe in that one domain, but not at an organizational level, is what I've found to be very key in API security.
Yeah, so and sort of from a bigger standpoint, so No Name security is, we are the leader in API security, and a lot of times the reason why the companies select us, and we partner with one of the best names. You probably heard that, we have exclusive partnership with IBM, and there's partnership with IBM and Intel. Sorry, IBM, Intel. There's Cognizant. The reason why we get selected because we provide the end-to-end identity API security platform, right? So we're talking about being able to take everything in terms of discovery standpoint, from your traffic and configurations and test result and documentation, all the analysis and help you identify the vulnerabilities. And integrated, with everything that you have in your stack, SIEM tools, your ITSM, your CI/CD pipelines, do the blocking and the flexibility. I think that is where we gain most of the points, is the fact that we do it, with without agents, or with agents if you need to. We can do it SaaS, or hybrid, or on-prem. Just out of line, in line, whatever your environment desires or needs. No Name is flexible enough to work with you and again up level the security posture of your APIs. And with that, I think we're right at time.
We are right at time. Okay, last final sneaky one more question. What does somebody do if they want to get started with No Name security? Where do they go? What's their first step?
The very first step, there's a link to request a demo to get in contact with us. We'll be happy to tailor the demo exactly to your needs, your environments, your level, in terms of your maturity level, and work with you towards that gold standard that Marco is covering.
Fantastic. Well, you guys have given us a ton to think about today. I wish we could keep going, but hey, we've already got topics for our very next discussion in the works. So hopefully we'll get you both back on out here with us again soon.
All right. Thank you so for having us. And thank you so much for spending the last 30 or so minutes with us. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
All right. And to everyone out there who is asking again about the slides, I love how invested you all are in this. This is making me so happy. You're all really ready and eager to do your homework. So we are going to make sure, again, you'll get the on-demand link. You will be able to rewatch this webinar. Please go visit that handouts tab. Make sure that you're spending time with those resources. We have a couple of really cool things. We have that top 20 API security controls. That is an immediately helpful and applicable takeaway. Make sure you've got that downloaded. Plus, you can click to request the personalized demo. That's what Stas was just talking about. And you can get an ebook, Rising to Meet the API Challenge. This is going to dig into why APIs matter, how you can protect them, basically the perfect follow-up to what we just heard from Stas and Marco. So if you are having that feeling right now of, I got to learn more, which clearly a lot of you are, I love that, those handouts are the best place to start. So make sure that you spend some time getting those handouts ready to rock after we go. I want to say I'm seeing Yidi says thank you. Douglas says thank you. Milan says thank you. Lorenzo, all of the wonderful high fives coming in today. This just warms me to my core. I love seeing that this has all resonated with you because that is, of course, what we want. That's why we're here, is to learn together. Well, speaking of why we're here, I know that we are getting close to the end of time and we do need to let things go. But before we wrap up, I want to make sure we give away our prize. That's a $250 Amazon gift card that we have in the wings here. So let me get our winner for all of you. Our $250 Amazon gift card going to Paul Petrasco of Wisconsin. Paul Petrasco of Wisconsin, you have won a $250 Amazon gift card. Plus, I want to remind you all that we have that $50 Amazon gift card coming at you for the best question asked. And we're going to review all the questions asked at the end of our webinar. And there are so many. We just got flooded by all of you today, which I absolutely love. And we will choose that best question and follow up with you. So again, Paul Petrasco of Wisconsin, you've won that $250 Amazon gift card, and stay tuned for the $50 best question gift card coming at you. All right, my friends. Well, with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to once again thank No Name Security for making this webinar possible, and especially a big giant thank you to both Stas and Marco for guiding us through such an interesting conversation today. But of course, my biggest high five, my biggest thank you has to go to all of you out there with us today for making this discussion possible. I had so much fun talking with all of you today about API security, identifying those foundational elements that we all need to be taking into consideration. And then, and this was the best part, laying out those action steps, those milestones that we need to help get us started to take action and move forward to get to that peace of mind place that we all want to be, where we're not worrying about the zombies that might be out to get us and all the other many things that are on our list of fears on any given day. So I hope that you're all walking away feeling excited, feeling pumped up to take some action, to continue this conversation. Make sure you're waiting for that on-demand link. Make sure you are getting those handouts and following up with the No Name Security team, because obviously there's lots more to learn. Well, I hope that I get to see you all on a webinar again soon. And until then, have an absolutely beautiful end to your day. Thanks all.